Hello and welcome to Sumaya Unveiled. We have Dr. Karim Ellis joining us today. He's a special guest. He is a breakthrough strategist and a motivational speaker, and I'm super excited and honored to have him on our podcast today. Please join me as we welcome Dr. Karim Ellis Unveiled. Dr.
Okay.
Ellis, it's super exciting to see you.
Well, I was going to leap in real quick and say thank you very much, but I want to make sure you got your flow and your tempo. So thank you very much. As always, it's a privilege, it's a pleasure, and most importantly, it's an honor. And I'm in the midst of speaking royalty. Come on now, you ain't throwing it out there. You part of speaking royalty. You part of speaking greatness. So it's definitely an honor to be here with you today.
Thank you so much. I want to give you your flowers now because I look, being my dad's daughter, and I have a lot of siblings, as you know. We have so many people that are around our father that we've seen throughout the years, but we can count probably on two hands how many people just go above and beyond out of their way just to make sure that he's okay. And I think when you're so used to people, especially when you have a big name and people are just taking and taking and pulling, and you have somebody that has a heart like my dad who just wants to give and give, it's very rare to see people that will literally come alongside you and say, hey, what do you need? Especially in his senior years, like just looking out for him in ways that they don't have to. And I just want to publicly thank you because that speaks not only to who you are as a speaker, but I have a lot of respect for you. I can think of a few people that I know that are, and I'm probably not naming everybody, but you, Jermaine Miller, Johnny Wimbery, you guys are just people that come alongside and just make sure that he's good when you don't have to. And I think that just speaks to, again, integrity and character. So I thank you, and I have a great deal of respect, and so does my family, for you and for the amazing things that you're doing that we're going to dig into on this episode. So I just wanted to thank you for that, Dr. Ellis.
Well, first of all, you ain't gonna make me tear up. I'm a fight through the tears. They ain't gonna make a Michael Jordan meme out of my face with tears crying up. But absolutely, yeah, it's crazy you said that because the message I put up on social media is you got to know the difference between those who come to help you build and those who come to help you just come strictly to take. And I think in this day and age, you got a lot of people that's just about the take and not about the building. So I believe in the law of karma. I believe that what you do for others will somehow find its way back to you. So I always want to leave that good paper trail behind me. So thank you.
That's awesome. That is awesome. We are going to switch gears and get into the incredible, amazing work that you are doing, not only that you are currently doing, but that you have done for a number of years. You're extremely successful. And I think what happens is in society with social media, when we look at people and we see how successful they are, we forget that there was a process, there was a journey, there was a day one. And so what I want to do is I want to dig into Dr. Karim Ellis. What was your journey? Can we just go back a little bit? And can you let us in a little bit to, first of all, what you do, but what led you to become who you are right now? I know that's a big, massive question, but let's explore a little bit.
Well, I'm happy we're starting at day one, right? So first and foremost, I'm known as the #1 breakthrough strategist. And a lot of people go, well, what in the world is a breakthrough strategist? And it's pretty simplistic. My job is to help individuals and organizations experience breakthrough in every aspect of their life. I believe there's a 2.0 version of yourself waiting to come out. The idea is I got to take a look at my gifts, my talents, my education, my connections, and figure out what's sitting on the inside of me or what's around me that's going to help me go and grow to that next level. So that's first and foremost. But my journey started back as the kid that got in trouble for talking too much, as if people couldn't tell. Right? Well, most speakers, we get in trouble for talking too much. And so very smart kid, I actually skipped a grade. But every single time I looked at a report card, it always said he talks entirely too much. And one of the things I've learned is a gift and talent that lacks discipline will end up in destruction. And I believe your background, memory serves correct, your background is in education. So you've dealt with students that talk too much. The problem is there's nothing wrong with talking too much because for some of us, that is a gift. But if I don't know how to have discipline with it, I'll use it outside the context where it becomes disastrous or destruction, or, I'll be the kid missing recess all the time, versus using it to take me to the next level. So that's where that journey started at. It started with getting in trouble for talking too much.
That's incredible. I actually had that happen to me as a kid too. And my mom literally used to say to me, "You have a gift." Those were her exact words. "Sumaya, you
Mm,
have a gift. You just have to learn when to turn it on and
mm,
when to turn it off." And she helped to train and cultivate that and used to practice, have me practice speeches and things like that. So I can definitely relate to that. So I would
mm,
say for a breakthrough, when I think of a breakthrough, I think of
mhm.
something where you are kind of in a rut or in a jam. You need to
Yeah.
break out of something. You're not
Mm,
comfortable where you are. You're uncomfortable. And
mhm,
so you're seeking to get out of where you are into something else, but breakthrough almost sounds a bit violent. So it's not
mhm.
something that just gradually happens, but it's something that you have to forcefully kind of push and have that
Yeah.
mental resolve. So I want
Mhm.
to know, how, when you think of breakthrough, what is
Sure.
it that how do you define breakthrough? Because we're still going to dig into, we're going to turn this back to you in a second, but how do you define breakthrough?
Well, I can probably show you better than I can tell you.
Okay.
I'm known by a lot of my students for this little treasure chest, right?
Mm,
And no,
mhm.
it's not money inside. No one come to my house knocking on the door trying to get the coins. Ain't no coins in this. What's inside this treasure chest is actually a bunch of acorn seeds, right? And the reason
Mhm.
why I filled it up with acorn seeds is it's a reminder that locked inside each one of these seeds is the potential to transform into a mighty oak tree, right? That means the oak tree is already locked inside the seed, but in order for this seed to go through the transformation process, it has to break through this outer shell. The breakthrough only happens when the seed is planted in the right environment. If I leave this on my desk, I can leave it here for a week, 2 weeks, 5 weeks, 5 years. It's not going to transform. But if I put this in the right environment, right, the transformation takes place and it breaks out of its shell and it grows into what it's actually designed to be. So I think with breakthrough, everyone has breakthrough potential. But a lot of times, what limits the breakthrough is we're not purposely planting ourselves in the right environment. The key word is purposely planting, right? Some of us get breakthrough accidentally. We're in the right place at the right time and it happens. But for most of us, once we understand our gifts, our talents, our education, and we get an idea of purpose, which is what we're going to do a lot of talking about today, it's my responsibility to make sure that seed is properly planted in good soil that's going to create that breakthrough and that transformation.
That's awesome. So I think of you as a seed that had a breakthrough and a transformation, clearly, because you started off with this seed of potential, which was, I can
Mm,
speak. I'm getting told in school that I'm talking too much, but you were
mm,
able to understand and recognize, no, this is a gift that needs to be cultivated. This is not a bad thing. This is actually my superpower. So what
yes.
transpired in your life for you to, number one, discover your purpose, and what type of breakthrough did you have to have in order to uncover that and become who you are today?
Yeah, so my story is a little bit more hectic than most.
Mm,
I went through a very tumultuous breakup with someone who I was madly in love with when I came out of high school. I did not go off to college. Remind you, my parents were very upset about that because I skipped a grade. So they see all this potential. You were 16 as a senior. Go off, see the world. My parents said, date other people, don't settle down. And I didn't listen to any of them because I was in love and I thought I knew what was best for me. And then the relationship went south.
mm,
And then I found myself in a predicament where I didn't want to go back home and have that conversation that involved the words, I told you so. And so I tried
mm,
to figure out how to rectify the situation. So, in my personal story, I was homeless for about 3 months. I was either
mm,
sleeping out of the car when I can get away with it. On other nights, I would go to the place I was working at. I would wait out in the parking lot around 11 o'clock at night. My office was on the third floor. And so I sit out there and I would watch the cleaning crew go through and turn off the lights, which symbolized they were done. I'd use my access card and go up there and lay it down, make a little pallet under my cubicle, wake up at 5 in the morning, go wash up and straighten my clothes out, sit down. And then my boss would walk in at 6 o'clock and say, Ellis, that's what I like about you. You got gusto. You are always the first to arrive. Got no clue. I've been sleeping here the whole night.
wow.
Yeah. So eventually I was forced to go back home. And the problem being was I went through a mad depression because I felt like so
Mm,
much of a failure. And then everything started to spiral. Murphy's Law says that which can go wrong will go wrong at the one inopportune moment in time. And so I found myself getting fired at the job because my performance was lacked off, right? I started to gain a lot of weight being an emotional eater. And with no income coming in and no job lined up, I watched the car get repossessed. I watched credit cards get maxed out and go over their limit. I watched bank accounts get shut down. And at that level, my depression had hit a point where I didn't think I deserved to be on the planet anymore. And so for the
mm,
first time ever, I was having thoughts of committing suicide and taking my own life. I remember laying on my sofa. I had a sofa that was in the basement of my parents' house. And I remember tears streaming down my cheeks, crying out to God, saying, give me one solid reason. Just give me one reason why I should stick around. Because every time I would make a step forward, I would get knocked 15 steps back. And that night I had one of the most vivid dreams I could possibly imagine. I actually had a dream of my own funeral. Now, two things took place. Number one, I had to check the casket and see what they had a brother on. Because, they tell you when you die, that's your ghost suit. Don't have me up in heaven looking raggedy, right? If the streets of heaven is paved in gold, a brother got to look good. And so that was fine. But the second thing I did is I looked over my shoulder to see who was at the funeral. Because there's some people that better be there on my final day. And of course, the normal suspects were there. The immediate family members, a few cousins I was cool with. But as I looked past the first two rows, I saw people that I know who they were. I had no clue who they were. And I remember in the dream asking God, who are all these people? And then I went outside and I saw the parking lot was jam-packed full of cars. People were fighting against the parking lot. And again, I asked God, unless I owe people money, I have no clue who all these people are. And then God spoke clearly and said, you want to know a reason why you should stick around? I'm not done with you. This is just a smidgen of the lives you're going to impact while you're on this planet. When I woke up, one thing was crystal clear. I wasn't going to take my life. The second thing was I understood I was put here on purpose, with purpose, by purpose, for purpose. As your father says all the time, you've been knocked up for purpose. The question being is, when are you going to give birth to it? And so for me, that was my initial journey. It was going to the brink. And I think this happens to a lot of people. A lot of people were pushed to the brink, but it's not for you to fall into the precipice. It's for you to understand that the reason why you're here is greater than what you've been led to believe all the way up until this is that moment in time. And so it's been pursuit of that purpose that's kept me moving ahead.
That's outstanding. That is a powerful story. And thank you for even opening up and sharing that with our audience. I can definitely identify, not personally, but when you share parts of your story, even watching my father's journey and early on when he was at the Penobscot building in Detroit doing the same thing, not having a place. And, it's so crazy because my siblings and we were staying with his fiance. And I mean, you got to be a great man to have a fiance and be homeless, and have sleep in your office and have your fiance watch your kids. And then we wake up every morning and like, oh, daddy's at work, just like you said, he would have us there from night until day, watching him do what he did. We knew he was sleeping there. We knew what was going on, and to see it pay off. And I think what is so phenomenal about what you're saying is, again, we see you now, we see the suit, we see that you've appeared in all of these different places, you're doing so many things, but to know that at one point in your life you were homeless multiple times, at one point in your life you were sleeping on the job where you worked, at one point in your life you were contemplating ending it all, and you had this divine encounter, this divine intervention that said, no, this isn't your time, I have work for you to do. What would you say to someone who is you, maybe 20 some years ago, however long it was? What are you going to say to them? Their mindset right now is, I'm ready to end it all. I don't have it. No one is going to come to my funeral. I don't believe I have potential. What would you say to yourself if you could say something to your old self?
Wow. There will be a lot of things I would say to myself. I have some slap me moments, all right?
Right.
But one of my go-tos is always, the quality of the question determines the quality of the result. And the problem with most of us in life, we ask the wrong questions. I'm sitting here holding an iPhone. It ain't the newest one, but it'll work for where it's at. I think I'm around that 11 range. I don't think I'm at that 13, 14. But like most people, we grab the iPhone out the box and we just jump on it, plug it in, charge it up, get cell phone service, and get to going. And months into owning the phone, we realize we don't even know a third of what the features are that this phone can do. We got no clue. And if I really want to know what this phone can do, I got to consult the manufacturer of the phone. I got to go to Apple and say, man, what all can your product do? I didn't know I can do all this stuff with it. God works the same exact way. And I know we got people that watch this, just going to watch this from all different beliefs and backgrounds. So I'm not trying to convert nobody. But for me personally, when I say the quality of the question, All throughout my life, people ask me, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? I focused on money. I focused on success. I focused on building a family. I focused on all these things. No one ever sat down and asked me, what is your purpose? Why are you here? Right? And I think that kind of cycles around to what we talked about before we got on here. We
Mhm.
talked about occupation versus identity, because a
Mhm.
lot of people make their life about the occupation. And I don't think that's the case. I think that occupation is what you do, right? Identity is who you are, and purpose is why you've been put here. And the real question is, why are you here? With so many people all around the globe being put on this planet, and you're blessed to be one of them, why are you here? What is your assignment? And what do you need to do to get into alignment with your assignment to get things done? So I would tell people all the time, you got to ask yourself the right question. The right question is, why am I here? If I focus on my purpose, everything else that I'm supposed to have will gravitate towards it or be a byproduct of it.
I think that's outstanding. So I'm going to go back to Dr. Kareem, pre when you were just Kareem and
Yeah.
you were sleeping at your job that you were
Mm-hmm.
working.
Sure.
And what type of questions, what type of internal dialogue did you have to make that
Mm-hmm.
mental shift to say, hey, I'm going to move into purpose? And how were you able to uncover and discover exactly what your purpose was?
Yeah. So part of the problem with me was I had a financial deficit, right?
Mm,
I wasn't sleeping at the job because it was comfortable.
right, right.
if that was the case, I mean, well, not that was the case. If I had money, I could have slept at a hotel, right? I didn't have any money. I was in a two-income household, and since I was the older in the relationship, most of the bills and debt was in my name. And you break up with somebody, they ain't helping you pay nothing. Unless there's a court order, ain't nobody helping you. So I had more debt than money coming in, or as we say, I had more month than money. And so I was moving out of necessity, right?
Mhm.
Not out of luxuriousness. So in my situation, as I thought about what do I need to do to fix my situation, I kept saying money, 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 money. And so I did what most people do. I started to try to work harder. I worked overtime. And then when that didn't work out, I picked up a second job. One of my favorite books in the world is Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And
Mhm.
notice he says think and grow rich and not work hard and grow rich. That means the most
Mm.
valuable resource you got on you is this right here. It's a matter of how you use it on a regular basis. You're supposed to think your way to success, right? And so what I started to do is take a look at the resources that are already locked inside of me. Once I had that dream and I woke up understanding my purpose, I got to be clear about this. God is never going to give you a divine assignment without giving you the resources to pull it off. That's like me contractually getting you to build me a house, but you don't have any bricks, you don't have any lumber, you don't have access to any electrical tools. How can you build me a house? You don't have the tools to do it. And so for most people, most of us have never sat down and figured out what are the resources we're sitting on right now, even though we've been using them every single day.
Hmm.
That kid at 5 and 6 years old that got in trouble for talking too much, that resource that was given to me since I came out my mother's womb is the very thing I use now to get paid on stages, starting at a minimum of $20,000 every time I speak. Right? So there had to be a mindset shift when I was inside that workplace sitting on the floor. I had to imagine myself at the place of my finish line, which is hard to do because
Mhm.
most of us dream in our present tense based on our lack of resources, our lack of supplies, our lack of connections. And so when I started to dream in the future tense of where I'm supposed to be at first, it made it a whole lot easier. When you
Mm.
put an address inside a GPS, it's giving you a glimpse of where you're going to, not where you start at. Right? So for me, it was always by staying future focused on what I wanted to, where I wanted to get to, what I'm trying to get to, versus where I'm at right now.
I think that's phenomenal. And one of the things that I always think about, and I want to dig into your mind a little bit because you have a very interesting mind, and everything that you've shared, I know is going to empower and inspire the viewers. And so when I think about you saying, I visualized myself, I saw myself basically
Mm,
where I saw myself successful. That's powerful because it
mhm,
does start with a thought, it does start with vision, and it gives you something to
mhm,
press towards and to have a center focus, a target that you can push
mhm,
towards and reach. But my question is this a lifelong pursuit, or is there a destination that you have in mind? Did you see yourself reach a certain point? And if
mhm.
so, have you reached at that point, or are you continually reaching? And the
Continue.
reason that I asked, I'm gonna tell you why I asked that question before you
Okay.
answer, is because I look at my father, for example, who saw
Mhm,
himself doing all these things. Now he's done it. He's done all of
Yeah.
these amazing things. And
Hmm.
here he is, 80 years old, with the
Hmm.
energy of a 20-year-old. And he's
Yes.
still pushing and striving. And I almost want to get in his mind and say, what more? Like, what
Yeah.
else? But he's not done. And I just wonder, in your mind, like, what's going on? Is there a destination, or are you just going to continue on?
No. Let's go back to this again, because I'm
Hmm.
glad you brought your father up. Right. So again, let's say this seed represents your dad less, right? The
Hmm.
seed has been properly planted. We can see that over 80 years of his life. The seed has been planted. But you understand, the process of planting the seed is to produce fruit.
Hmm.
There's a parable about Jesus and the fig tree where he goes to the fig tree and there's no figs on it. So he comes back 24 hours later. He ain't wait a week. He ain't wait, like, do you know how fast that tree has to produce figs to come back in 20? That's like me going to my grocery store looking for Chips Ahoy cookies and then coming back the next morning, they still ain't here. And then Jesus cursed the fig tree and said, wither and die and never bear fruit again, because you're not doing the very thing you designed to do. Your job is to produce fruit. And this is for everybody under the sound of my voice. Your job, in whatever respective aspect of the seed you are, your job is reproduce fruit. And locked inside every piece of fruit is what? Additional seed. So
Hmm.
I think in everybody's journey that once they get properly planted and they begin to develop and grow and they produce fruit. And remember, the fruit is never for the tree. I've never seen an apple tree grow to fruition, and then under the weight of gravity and wind, that juicy, red, delicious apple finally breaks and falls down to the ground, and the tree looks around and picks it up and says, man, I sure am hungry, and takes a bite out of it. The fruit is for everyone else who comes past, right? So you got to think about the legacy that he's created and how many people have eaten from the fruit of this man's tree. And locked inside every piece of fruit that he has shared with the world is additional seed. And that seed reproduces inside of the individuals that have access to the fruit. So I think it is always going to be a lifelong journey. And the goal being is not just to plant a seed and create a tree. Your job is to plant your seed and create an orchard. When I look at legacy, when it comes to anyone who's great, whether it's in the sports arena, the acting arena, the music arena, or even the speaking arena, the difference between average and what I call abundance is based on whether you planted a seed and created one tree, or did you leave a legacy to turn into an orchard where people are still eating off the fruit of your wisdom years after you've left this world. My
Mm.
job has always been to plant an orchard. Always.
Okay, so we are in this field, right?
Yeah.
And we have all these orchards that are just sprouting and blooming.
Mm,
What does your fruit look like to the people that are in your inner circle? Because I think that,
yeah.
and this is again, I have a very unique perspective.
Mm,
You see people on stage, and then you see them in their private time, and you don't always
yes.
know. I know because of being around
Mhm,
different people, but then I meet
yeah.
other people and I think, okay, this is what they're saying on stage, but behind the
Mhm.
scenes, what is it that they're doing? So w- in your obviously we're human, so we're
Yeah,
flawed, we're not perfect, we're growing,
sure.
we're developing, but what does your fruit look like? I heard you say wisdom.
Yeah.
So that definitely would be a
Mhm.
fruit.
So I think that your seed is a byproduct of everything you've gone through, both good and both bad.
Mm,
That means any hurt I've gone through,
that's
any
good.
setbacks I've gone through, any drama I've gone through, any successes I've gone through, it's all mixed inside the genetic makeup of the seed called Dr. Karim Ellis. And so when I plant myself properly and I produce fruit, whatever's in the seed is going to be in the fruit. Right? They
Mm,
say in the dating world, if you want to date someone, they tell you oftentimes to meet the family because you could tell the fruit by the tree it came from. This
mhm.
works the same exact way. Whatever's inside of you, that's the seed. It's a mixture of everything you've gone through. So when I properly plant this seed, what I'm going to share with the world is everything I've gone through. So if I've gone through struggle
Mm,
seasons financially, I'm going to talk, speak, and teach on that. So someone who's going through that same financial struggle, they can take a
yes.
bite out of my fruit and go, man, I got it. If he was struggling, if he had to move back home at 26, if he watched his car get repossessed, if he was out there homeless for a minute struggling, I could eat from this fruit and gain wisdom from it. Right? For the
Mm,
person that has a gift and talent and they're afraid to jump out there because they're afraid of what the world is going to think or what their friends and family are going to think, that's locked inside the seed as well. I think whatever you are is your seed, and whatever you plant is what's going to produce. So I can see financial empowerment. I can see raising up a bevy of speakers as well. I can see folks chasing goals and dreams, entrepreneurship. There's so many things that's mixed inside of me, from heartache to heartbreak to success. It's all going to be locked inside of it. So that's what my field looks like. That's what that orchard looks like.
So my question is, when you have fruit and you're
Mm,
bearing fruit all around you, the good
mhm,
and the bad, and you're taking it and you're sharing your experiences and you're being transparent with
mhm.
your audience and saying, look, this is what I went through. This is
Sure.
who I am. How
Mhm.
do you reconcile having those moments where you're a breakthrough strategist,
Yes.
but do you still have moments where you need a breakthrough? Because I think there's the assumption that if we're in motivation or positive
Oh.
thinking or speaking, that we are exempt, that somehow we're superheroes and we're invincible. And so
Woo!
our past looks like struggle and our past looks like being unmotivated, but our present
Mhm.
is perfect. Are
Yeah.
you how do you, I guess I should say, navigate and unpack and reconcile that truth of still needing a breakthrough? And what are the conversations internally that you have with yourself as you are pouring out to other people
Mhm.
to kind of refuel and build yourself up at times when you need to also experience your own personal breakthrough in other areas?
Ooh, I love this one. This is a loaded question. So first and foremost, I want to say, and you hit the nail on the head. There's nobody walking the earth this perfect. Religiously, we say
Mhm.
Jesus, but there's no one walking there perfect. The problem being is you're right. We set ourselves on these platforms that put us up here as influencers and role models and think champions, and folks will look, not realizing that a lot of us have cracks and flaws. It's just that we have gotten really, really good at covering and coding those things, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
One of the reasons why transparency is so good, because what I learned when I was speaking, teach on a topic, I would teach it at such a level that people say, man, that sounds great, but you look so perfect. How could I ever get to the level you're at? And so when I go into my past and say, I thought about taking my life, I've been to the point where I've had bank accounts shut down and I've gone through toxic relationships and things like that. It humanizes me. So
Mhm.
that way I'm more relatable, right? The person would know. It's an old principle I learned from my early real estate days when I had some Section 8 property. I would have the property immaculate and they would send a Section 8 inspector over to check the property and it had to pass. If it didn't pass, we're not cutting any checks. And since I know it was so perfect, that means he's going to look even harder for flaws. I will purposely take a hammer and crack a light switch, right? And so
Mhm.
again, if it was cracked, they go up. We found something, and so I got one in the car, and so I'll put it on right there. Boom, pass inspection. When you're able to show your flaws, and this is for the speaking community, you were able to become more relatable with your tribe and your audience.
Mhm.
Right? You
Mhm.
don't want to get to the point where folks look at you as untouchable because of the fact you're here versus being relatable, right? So yeah, I think that part of it is about humanizing yourself and being open with who you are and developing messages out of it. Now, here's the catch: you got to be healed to do this. I've had
Mm.
people that have come to me for speaker training in some capacity, or I've seen other speakers get on stage and they talk about a storm they went through, but they're not healed from the storm. I did
Mhm.
something called Picking Up the Pieces 2 years ago, and in Picking Up the Pieces, I had a broken mirror, and I said that when we look into the mirror, the reflection is supposed to be clear, but when life hits us with different things, there's over time there's cracks in the mirror, and if this
Yeah.
mirror's been hit 72 times, after a while, even though the mirror is reflective, I still can't get a clear glimpse of who I am, right?
Mm.
And so
Mhm.
there's a point in time where most of us are leaning towards trying to repair the mirror. If a piece falls out, let's put some tape over, some glue over. The problem is it's still not giving me a clear reflection of who I am. So one of the things God has always instructed me that when the mirror is so beat up, you got to be willing to toss the mirror away and let me give you a
Mm.
new mirror. Because the problem is if I try to use the mirror with those broken shards, I will cut myself and bleed on people who had nothing to do with my past.
Mm.
You got a lot of speakers out there that are speaking from past incidents and past hurts and past trials and past tribulations, but they never healed. And so they're bleeding on people in their present. And that's unfortunately going
Mhm.
to discombobulate their future. Right. So I was
Yes.
very, very clear about that. There are so many people say, I've been through a storm. That's cool. You've been through a storm, but have you healed from it before you get out there
Mhm.
talking about it? Right.
Mhm. Mhm. That's so true because whatever you don't heal from, it will haunt you. It will come back and it will be waiting on you when you get home.
Yeah, it will.
When you turn your microphone off, and that's real. And I think that it it's a responsibility that you have, and I don't mean you as in you, but that an individual has, that when you have a platform where you're
Mm-hmm,
empowering and encouraging, just like you said, and you're showing your scars and you're saying, "Hey, look, this was my struggle. This is what I
mm-hmm,
went through." But
mm-hmm,
there's
mm-hmm,
still, just like you said, you have to be willing to deal with that Otherwise, you're going to be broken. And what a tragedy it would be
Mm-hmm.
to bring so much restoration to other lives only
Mm,
for your life to be broken
mm,
perpetually. And so if we could just as human beings
mm-hmm.
remember that humanity, again, just like what we're talking about, isn't perfection. It's sometimes, yes, we're going
Mm,
to make mistakes, we're going to have highs, we're going to have lows, but if we can just remember to work on
mm.
ourselves and to allow ourselves to continue to grow and develop and not just stop, I think that that's super helpful. So
Can, can,
what would you say?
can I toss a lessism in here real quick? Because your father
Absolutely,
said
please
a lot of
do.
stuff. I call them lessisms. One of the things
Mhm.
he taught me
Oh, I
upon
thought
my
you said
first
lessons,
meeting,
lessism.
I call them a lessisms, right?
Ah,
He
here we
said,
go.
he said, don't let your character take you to a, he said, don't let your success take you to a height that your character can't sustain you.
Mm,
Don't let your success, meaning your gift and talent, take you to a height or level that your character can't sustain you. Meaning that most of the people we see that fall from grace after hitting the heights of
mhm.
success, there were situations they never healed from and they brought it along for the journey. It was just a matter of time before Pandora's box opened up and everything they worked hard for came tumbling out, right? The other thing I think is this. Again, we're all flawed, but if you're going to get in
Mhm.
trouble for something, don't get in trouble for crossing your brand. Meaning, if you get in trouble for something that's in direct correlation to what we celebrated you for, right? It's going to be very hard for you to bounce back and get back up to the top again. If you look at a Martha Stewart versus a Milli Vanilli, and I'm dating myself, I know some people are like, who? Right? Milli Vanilli got Grammys for singing, but they couldn't sing a lick. And when the world found out about it, it was unforgivable, right? There was nothing that could be done. Whereas a Martha Stewart got in trouble for insider trading. It had nothing to do with what we celebrate her for. All the artsy, craftsy stuff and all the cooking and stuff. Now, if you found out she wasn't doing any of that cooking for real and all that artwork was stolen and she was taking credit for it, we never would have forgave her either. Lance Armstrong's another person like that, where we celebrated him 7 Tour de France's and he was doping up the whole time. So he had the added edge and benefit. He never bounced back. So that's another
Mm.
reason why you want to deal with your problems before your problems eventually deal with you. Or my Kareemism is we will repeat what we don't repair.
Yes, I gotta add a slight, I don't wanna say correction, but adjustment to one because I was a big Milli Vanilli fan of that one
Oh,
song. I don't know any other song that they had, but that "Girl, You Know It's True" song, I remember that.
yeah.
So, they actually I know one is no longer here. I think he
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
ended
He,
his
yeah.
life, unfortunately. But there
Yeah.
is one who is remaining who looks as young as he did then today, which is kind of weird,
Mm-hmm.
but awesome. And he
Yeah.
actually can sing a little bit. Like he has a
Yeah.
voice. So it's not the same voice that we heard. And I think
Sure.
that but I get your point that
Yeah.
sometimes you have these imposters, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why if there's anything that anybody is watching that they can gather as you are aspiring, if you are aspiring to go into public speaking
Mm-hmm.
or to become a breakthrough strategist or whatever it is that you endeavor to do, we are not going to live perfect lives. We are
Absolutely not.
not always going to be lining up the way that we
Mm-hmm.
should line up. But if you find yourself in that place, obviously it's a difficult place and it's going to be disappointing to the people
Sure.
around you, but that doesn't have to be your end either. Like you can actually say, you know what, I don't care if I'm 20 or 120, I'm
Mm-hmm.
changing today. I'm going to make a change for the better today. Now, are people
Right.
going to pat you on the back and lift you back up again? Probably not. But if that's
Sure.
your pursuit, you've lost before you've even started. So I
Yeah.
hear what you're saying and how important integrity and character is. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why all of us have to constantly just make
Sure.
sure that we're looking inward as much as we're looking outward and picking apart
Mm-hmm.
people that we put on platforms. At
Yeah.
that same time, sometimes they're just mirror reflections of me. It's so easy for me to take a rock and a stone and stone the
Oh,
person that's on the
yeah.
stage. But then when I go home and I look in the mirror, I'm completely
Mm.
fine with my life and my imperfections. So I think there does need to be somewhat of a balance in that area, but also, as you are saying, still a challenge to
Yeah.
make sure that as we are moving in whatever career or purpose that we have, that we are moving with integrity. So
Mm.
I'm just wondering,
Mm-hmm.
with breakthrough strategists and purpose,
Mm-hmm.
how does breakthrough strategist and purpose meet? Like, how does that come together
Mm.
in the world of Dr. Karim, and how do you cultivate that for your amazing community and following that you have that are so blessed to be able to pull from the outstanding resources that you give them?
Yeah, so let me make sure I'm getting this correctly. So you
Mhm.
want to know as far as what I do and how does that deal with strategy? Is that the connotation we're going
Mhm.
with?
Because you're focusing on, being a breakthrough strategist,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
you also have a pull with
Mm.
purpose, and so
Yeah.
what I'm asking you is how do these 2 intersect and connect to
Mm.
cultivate something that your audience can glean from, or is that, I know that's kind of like an out there question, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to ask you.
I will answer it to the best of my ability,
Okay.
and you can correct me if I'm going off track with it.
Okay.
So again, I think everything starts with purpose, and I think
Mhm.
that this is so hard for most people because most people don't sit down and get asked at the age of 8, 9, 10, 12, 18, why are you here? Right?
Yes.
So we confuse purpose with occupation.
Mhm.
And I got to be clear about this. My first real job at 16 was McDonald's. And I'm not, don't McDonald's, don't you come for me, people, right? But at the age I'm at now, that is not my occupation. At 16 to say that my identity, so I'm here for all these many years leading up into my 40s, that's not my occupation, right? And so
Mm.
what I want to be clear about is I think that when I understand purpose, I understand that everything I've done along the way has some lesson that's beneficial to walking out my purpose.
Ooh,
There's
yes.
lessons I learned at 16 at McDonald's. People go, well, what's the lesson? And this is the breakthrough, because if you don't learn the lesson, you don't get the breakthrough, right?
Mm.
I
Mhm.
remember at 16, and I'm dating myself. I hate to do this, but minimum wage was 4.25 an hour. 4.25 an hour, right? And when they hired us, it was like 15 kids. This McDonald's was right across the street from a major mall. It used to be called Forest Fair Mall. It was the second largest mall in the country. So you can imagine when people left the mall, they shot right across the McDonald's, backed up. Super huge hiring bench, brought all of us in. After 45 days, I was the only kid left because when you a child,
Mm.
you ain't really got to work. You buy Jordans and CDs and stuff like that. I'm
Mhm.
dating myself again. And so the mall put in this giant amusement park, and they were starting kids off at 4.50 an hour. And all my buddies from school said, you should come over here because, at that age, that quarter make a difference.
Mhm. Yes, it did.
Right? And so I remember thinking, well, I've been here for 4 or 5 months. I hate to just walk on over there and let me see if I can get 4.50 here. So I remember nervously asking my manager for a little bit of personal time to say, hey, I wonder if you can bump me up to 4.50. And she made it clear, we're not paying you 4.50. Number one, you
Mm.
got to be here for a year before that happens. You only been here for a few months. And then number two, we don't give a quarter raise. You're going to get a raise somewhere between 5 and 10 cents, probably closer to 5. Now, if that's all you got, shift change, I got to get back out there on the floor. And I was
Mm.
so hurt and upset because of all the time, the effort, the energy. I was the first to arrive, the last to leave. I was there on my days off, but someone called off. I stayed over. I put all my effort and energy, and I believed I was deserving of 4.50 an hour. Immediately when I got off the clock, I told my father, take me across the street. I put in my application at the mall. They hired me on the spot. I didn't give them a 2-week notice. I'm like, I quit. Here's my
Wow.
uniform. You get my check. And I couldn't figure out why she just wouldn't give me the raise. And then it dawned on me. When they hired you, you were only there to solve a 4.25 an hour problem. That's all the problem.
Mm.
It wasn't worth $4, it wasn't worth $5, $6, $7. It wasn't worth 4.50. It was 4.25 an hour. And so if you don't like what you're getting paid, chances are you're probably spending 40 hours a week solving the wrong problem.
Mm.
I'm a prop guy, right? So right now there's a light bulb going off in somebody's imagination. Somebody just heard this and the light bulb because they upset at
I
what they're
can't.
getting paid right now. And it's nothing wrong with the job. The job, when they
Mhm.
wrote the course, said this is what you work based on the problem you solve. So if I don't like what I'm getting paid, my job is to figure out what's my gift, what's my talent, what's my level of education, what is my life experience, what are my connections, what are all the resources locked inside of me, around me, and then how do I use them to solve the problem that's going to pay me what I'm actually worth,
Mhm.
right? When I left the 9 to 5 to jump in entrepreneurship, it wasn't that the 9 to 5 treated me bad, not at all. It's just based on my goals and dreams and what I wanted. They weren't going to pay me what I was actually worth to get it, right? And so I had to figure out what problem am I actually qualified and equipped to solve based on what I'm sitting on versus what I'm settling to solve 40 hours a week, right?
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so I think for me, that would be the breakthrough moment, which is figuring out where do I want to go and what do I have that equips me to get there? And then the benefit is, how does my purpose rally around that as well? When you walk in the purpose, you never get tired of what you do. I don't feel like I have to take a vacation from what I do because I love doing it. Facts about it, I've been in relationships where I got into arguments because I love what I do, right? So sometimes putting this down is difficult. And I'm sure you know something about that. Sometimes when you're doing what you love to do, it's hard sometimes to put it down, right? We need those scheduled breaks because that's how we reinvigorate ourselves and repair ourselves and come back fully refreshed. But if I can get to the pathway of purpose, and that's one of the reasons why I feel your father at the age of 80 moves at 20, he's walking in purpose. You never run out of purpose. I've rarely seen a person of purpose run out of steam and energy. I watched your father one time speak for like 6 hours and then leave that event, and we went to a dinner and spoke for another 2 something. And I'm just like, anybody who speaks knows if you speak for more than an hour, mentally you were drained, let alone taking photos and autographs and all that. But I knew this man's walking in purpose. Yeah, so I think the breakthrough is me understanding where I am versus where I want to get to. The strategy part is, what's the blueprint or the game plan I'm going to use is going to get there. And everybody has something different. And here's the thing, I got to toss this in here because I need someone to really pick up what I'm putting down in the words of Myron Golden. As a kid playing football growing up, when we were on offense, we went to the offensive huddle, right? The job of the quarterback was to call a play that was going to get the ball a minimum of 10 yards down the field. I know the 10-yard plays don't make the highlight reel of ESPN and Sports Center. They want to focus on the long bomb with 2 seconds on the clock and everyone's in the end zone and it's a catch at the last minute and they won, right? And so many of us think that if we're going to shift from where we are to where we want to be, that we got to throw long bomb Hail Mary passes, and that's not the case. You just want to move the ball 10 yards up the field so the ref can blow the whistle. First down. It keeps the ball in play. I come strapped with the props. Come on now. That's part of my speaking style. I want to move whatever play I do. It just has to move me 10 yards up the field so it keeps the ball in play, right? So yeah, so that's the strategy part. What's the strategy? In order for me to leave my 9 to 5, I didn't just leap over into speaking. I jumped into real estate, and then the real estate was 10 yards down the field, 10 yards down the field. And then that put me in a position where now I have control of my day because I have to give 40 hours to someone where I got to sit inside their facility. And so that opened up the gateway to being able to speak and travel where I want to speak at. But that was strategy. Most people try to chase it when they have no strategy. What's the game plan? What's the blueprint? You can't call audible every play and think you're going to win the game. That might work on a play or two, but you can't do that for your life. It has to be some sort of strategy that's going to get you from where you are to where you're trying to be.
I can see how so many people would benefit from sitting under you and working with you and learning how to strategize in order to get their breakthrough, because you've lived it and you're living it. And so I want to thank you for being on and sharing so much wisdom and insight, and your energy is palpable. It's just, and this is you, this is who you are. And again, just as you said with my father, it's very evident that you love what you're doing, that you're walking in your purpose, because you're just pouring out and you have so much energy. So again, I want to thank you. Where can our viewers go, and what are you offering? What website can they go to partake in Dr. Karim Ellis and all the amazing services that you offer to empower people to have strategic breakthrough in their lives?
Well, I'm glad you asked. We got a couple things we'll drop, but I want to drop one more nugget in before we separate it out. For those of you that are watching and listening, and your eyes are paying attention, your ears are unclogged, be aware that when you're walking in purpose, nothing is accidental. That means the people you connect with, the people that you watch, oftentimes is a glimpse of what your fantastic future is supposed to look like. Like when I came across your father for the first time, I was 8 years old. My father used to pop cassette tapes in of Les Brown, right? I didn't know years down the road he would become a mentor figure in my life. I had no idea. But what I think is God gives us glimpses of our future early on so we can help set the right address in our life's GPS so we know where we're supposed to be going to. So if you're around successful people, number one, that's not accidental. Pay attention to who you are around in this season, because it's giving you some sort of barometer of where you're trying to get to. And number two, it's showing you it can be done. That's the main thing. Most people never take the step towards success because they don't have any any figures in their life that can show them the proof that it can be done. So I want to drop that in someone's lap right now so they're more intentional versus accidental in their success. Number two, if they're looking to bring me aboard or book me, they can always go directly to the website at KarimEllis.com, and name is down at the bottom. It's not with two E's, it's with one I. I've hit that mess up a couple times. If you go to any other Karims out there, I can't guarantee the quality. There's a couple brothers out there that's just as chocolate as me, but I can't guarantee they're going to give you the same message. So make sure you put that I instead of those E's. And then last but not least, because you spent the most valuable resource you have, which is your time. And I always want to be crystal clear on this. Time is always the most valuable resource. I want to pay that forward by offering, and it may come up reciprocal or reverse. I don't know. I'm hoping it comes out clear.
It's
A free digital copy of my best-selling book, GPS, My Success. Incidentally, your dad did the foreword for it. So we can't go wrong with that. That's good stuff, right? The reason why it's important, in about 30 days, I'm going to be doing an intensive masterclass on these principles and philosophies. And this is what I actually followed to get me out of my parents' basement and into the lane I'm in right now, right? So I'm going to talk about how you can set an address in your life's GPS and create dynamic success and all the pitfalls you're going to go through and how to navigate around them. And you can plug anything into this formula. I'm hoping you choose to plug your purpose in there, right? So if you go to my Instagram page and follow me on Instagram and shoot me a DM saying I watched Sumaya Unveiled and we got some gems and nuggets, I'm interested in getting a free copy of the book, I'll make sure my team gets you a free digital download. In 30 days, we're going all the way in and breaking this concept down on such a strong level.
Dr. Ellis, I want to thank you again for being a guest on Sumaya Unveiled. You're incredible. You have a very interesting mind and heart and passion and work. And I want to celebrate what you're doing. And when I look at you, I think about Dr. Miles Monroe when he says, live full and die empty. My dad quotes him all the time. You're living full. So just keep living full. And thank you for sharing your fullness with the viewing audience. And thank you again.
You're absolutely welcome, as always. Make sure you bring me back.
I definitely will gladly have you back. You've been amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Ellis. And thank you for watching Sumaya Unveiled.